There is a strange kind of sadness that visits people who have achieved everything they once dreamed of. You worked hard. You built a career, or a business, or a family, or perhaps all three. You bought the house you once only imagined. You earned the respect of your colleagues, the admiration of your neighbors, maybe even the kind of financial comfort your own parents never had. And yet, somewhere along the way, quietly, without warning, a hollow feeling crept in. A feeling that whispers, "Is this really all there is?" If you have ever felt this way, you are far from alone. Across America, men and women who spent decades climbing, striving, building, and achieving or discovering, often late in life, that success did not deliver what it promised. The house is beautiful, but the rooms feel emptier than expected. The retirement account is healthy, but the mornings feel strangely purposeless. The title on the business card once meant everything, and now it means almost nothing at all. So today, let us sit with this feeling honestly. Let us ask an old and important question. Why does modern success so often feel empty, even when we have done everything right? Let me tell you about a man. We will call him Walter, though he could be your father, your neighbor, your old co-worker, or perhaps someone very close to your own story. Walter spent 40 years building a successful business from nothing. He started with almost no money and a stubborn kind of determination that his own father had passed down to him. He worked long hours, missed birthdays, missed anniversaries, missed quiet Sunday afternoons that he told himself he would make up for later once things settled down, once the business was finally secure. Things never quite settled down. There was always another goal, another milestone, another number to reach. And Walter reached them, one after another, decade after decade. By the time he retired, he had more money than he ever imagined as a young man. He had a large house, a respected name in his community, and every outward sign of a life well lived. And yet, on the first quiet morning of his retirement, sitting alone at his kitchen table with nothing urgent left to do, Walter felt something he had never expected to feel. He felt lost. He felt, strangely, as though the very thing he had spent his whole life chasing had somehow slipped through his fingers the moment he finally caught it. Walter is not unusual. His story, in one form or another, repeats itself in kitchens and living rooms across this country, among people who did everything society told them would bring happiness, and found, instead, a quiet and confusing emptiness waiting at the finish line. One of the first reasons modern success feels so empty is that it was never designed to have a finish line at all. When Walter was young, success meant simply providing for his family and owning a modest, comfortable home. But once he achieved that, a new target appeared. A bigger house, a better car, a larger business, more employees, more recognition. Each time he reached a goal, the goal quietly moved further away, just out of reach, just beyond the horizon. This is not an accident, and it is not a personal failing. Modern life, particularly in America, has built an entire culture around constant comparison and endless upward movement. Advertisements whisper that the life you have is not quite enough. Social media shows glimpses of other people's homes, vacations, and achievements, creating an illusion that everyone else has already found the finish line you are still chasing. Our grandparents, by contrast, often measured success by a much shorter and more attainable list. A roof that did not leak, food on the table, children who were healthy and cared for, a community that respected your name. Once these things were achieved, there was a natural sense of arrival, of having truly succeeded, of being able to sit back on the porch in the evening and feel, honestly, that life was good. Today, that sense of arrival almost never comes. The target keeps moving quietly, endlessly, and so the feeling of having truly succeeded, of having truly arrived, remains forever just out of reach. There's another quiet trap hidden inside modern success, and it has to do with what we are actually measuring. For much of American history, a person's worth in their community was measured by their character. Were they honest? Were they hardworking? Were they kind to their neighbors? Could they be trusted to keep their word? These are the true measures of a respected life. passed down through generations of families who valued reputation built on integrity rather than income. Somewhere along the way, this measurement quietly shifted. Success began to be counted almost entirely in numbers. The size of a paycheck, the value of a home, the number of followers, likes, or public displays of achievement. Character, kindness, and integrity, while still admired in private, stopped being the primary currency of public success. This shift matters more than it might first appear. When success is measured only in numbers, it becomes impossible to ever feel truly satisfied because there is always a larger number somewhere else. But when success is measured in character, in the quality of one's relationships, in the trust and respect earned honestly over a lifetime, there comes a natural and lasting sense of fulfillment that money alone can never provide. Walter, looking back, often said that the moments he felt proudest were not the years his business grew the fastest, but the quiet moments when an old employee thanked him for believing in them, or when a neighbor mentioned, almost in passing, that Walter's word had always been good enough to shake hands on. These moments, small and easily overlooked at the time, turned out to be the truest measure of a life well lived. There is a harder truth hidden inside many modern success stories, one that is not always spoken aloud. Success, in its modern form, often demands an enormous price, and that price is time. Time with children who grow up faster than anyone expects. Time with a spouse who quietly learns to build a life around your absence. Time with parents who age and pass on while you were busy building something you told yourself would matter more later. Walter often spoke, in his later years, of the birthdays he missed, the school plays he arrived late to or missed entirely, the quiet dinners eaten alone at his desk while his family ate without him at home. At the time, each missed moment seemed small, easily justified by the importance of the work at hand. But when added together across decades, these small missed moments became something much larger, a quiet and permanent kind of loss that no amount of later success could ever fully repay. This is perhaps one of the deepest reasons modern success feels so empty. We often trade the very things that would have brought us lasting joy, time with the people we love, presence in the small, ordinary moments of daily life, in exchange for achievements that, once reached, provide only a brief and fading satisfaction. Our ancestors, working in fields, small shops, and modest trades, often had less choice in this matter, their days shaped entirely by necessity. And yet, ironically, many of them ended up spending far more true time with their families than modern professionals do, simply because their work and their home life were woven together rather than constantly competing against each other. There is a particular kind of loneliness that often hides behind great achievement, one that is rarely discussed openly. As people climb higher in their careers, or accumulate more wealth, or achieve greater public recognition, something curious often happens. Their circle of true, honest friendships tends to shrink, even as their circle of acquaintances grows larger. People begin to wonder whether new friends are drawn to them or simply to what they have achieved. Old friends, left behind during years of relentless climbing, slowly drift away. Their invitations declined one too many times. Walter once admitted, quietly, over coffee, that he could count on one hand the number of people he trusted completely, despite knowing hundreds of people by name. He had built an empire of business relationships, but very few genuine friendships had survived the decades of ambition. This loneliness is rarely visible from the outside. A successful person often appears surrounded by admiration, invitations, and attention. But true connection, the kind that sustains a person through hardship and brings real joy in celebration, requires something that ambition often quietly erodes: vulnerability, consistency, and time. Without these, even a person surrounded by crowds can feel profoundly and painfully alone. For many Americans of an earlier generation, success was never meant to stand alone. It was woven together with a larger sense of purpose, often rooted in faith, family, and service to community. Success was not simply about what a person accumulated for themselves. but about what they were then able to give. A larger income meant more support for the church, more help for struggling neighbors, more security to pass down to children and grandchildren. Achievement was tied to contribution, to meaning that reached beyond the individual and touched the wider community. Somewhere in the modern pursuit of success, this larger purpose was often quietly set aside, replaced by a narrower and more isolated goal: personal achievement measured against personal comfort and personal recognition. Without the anchor of a larger purpose, even great achievement can begin to feel strangely hollow because it was never connected to anything beyond the self in the first place. Walter, in his later years, found that the moments which brought him the deepest satisfaction were not connected to his business at all, but to the quiet ways he was finally able to give back. Mentoring a young man from his old neighborhood, supporting his church community, spending unhurried afternoons simply being present with his grandchildren. These moments, rooted in purpose beyond himself, brought a lasting sense of fulfillment that decades of business success had never quite managed to provide. So where does this leave us? If modern success so often leads to this quiet emptiness, what is the answer? The answer is not to abandon ambition or hard work entirely. Ambition, used wisely, built the very country so many of us are proud to call home. Rather, the answer may be found in reconnecting success to the things that gave it meaning in the first place: character, relationships, purpose, and presence. It means measuring a good day not only by what was accomplished, but by who was truly present with us along the way. It means choosing deliberately to protect time with family and friends, even when work seems to demand otherwise, remembering that these ordinary moments are, in the end, the extraordinary substance of a well-lived life. It means returning, where possible, to the simpler measures of success our grandparents once knew: honesty, hard work, kindness to neighbors, faithfulness to one's word, and gratitude for what has already been given, rather than constant hunger for what has not yet been achieved. It means recognizing that true wealth was never only about the size of a bank account, but about the depth of one's relationships, the peace of one's conscience, and the quiet satisfaction of having lived according to values that matter far beyond any single lifetime. Walter, now retired, spends his mornings very differently than he once did. He wakes without urgency, sits on his porch with a simple cup of coffee, and often finds himself calling one of his grandchildren just to hear about their day. He no longer measures his mornings by what he must accomplish, but by who he gets to spend them with. He will tell you, honestly, that it took him far too long to understand something his own grandfather likely knew instinctively: that success without connection is simply achievement, and achievement without meaning is simply exhaustion dressed up in a nicer suit. Perhaps modern success feels so empty because somewhere along the way, we quietly separated it from the things that once made it worthwhile. Perhaps the answer was never to achieve more, but to remember what achievement was always meant to serve. If this story reminded you of your own journey, of moments gained or moments missed along the way to your own version of success, share your thoughts in the comments below. Your reflection might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. And if these honest reflections on life, purpose, and the wisdom of those who came before us speak to you, consider staying with us a little longer. There are more stories waiting to be told, more truths worth remembering, and more quiet wisdom worth passing on to the generations who will follow after us.